Welcome to the inaugural episode of CareerTracks, a new podcast brought to you by DSG Digital Marketing. We are your co-hosts, Jack Marinello
and Gabby Milacki.
And we are both currently seniors at Westchester University and also interns here at DSG's Malvern, PA office. The inspiration for our podcast is to take our guests back to that time when they, like us, were first starting their careers and have them share their journey that brought them to where they are today. We'll also learn a bit about their lives and interests outside of work and plan to have some fun along the way. While there is no compensation for our guest, we will always show our appreciation by playing their favorite song at the end of the show. So thanks for joining us today, and we are happy to introduce our first guest, John Federn, Marketing Director at DSG.
Hello to both of you. How are you today?
Good, John. Thanks for joining us.
Not a problem at all.
John was born and bred in Queens, New York, and has been an Ansonia, Connecticut resident since 2003. John's been married 23 years to his college sweetheart, Lynn Ann, where they raised their daughter, Madeline, who now teaches elementary school in New Jersey. A cum laude graduate of Virginia Wesleyan College, where he majored in communications. He's currently marketing director for DSG, a Philadelphia area advertising consultancy. Previously, he worked in the same position at Wallstrom Group in Norwalk for 7 years. In his spare time, John also serves as the chairman of the Ansonia Democratic Town Committee.
So just to correct Gabby there for a second, they actually worked for 17 years at Norwalk. Is that how? Am I saying that right?
You are. Yes, it's Norwalk.
Norwalk, Wallstrom Group in Norwalk. Okay. All right, John. Well, like I said, thank you for joining us today. We kind of just want to jump right into it. We're really excited to get things going. Are you ready?
I am ready.
So, John, you were a communications major, which is interesting. I'm also a communications major, by the way, who's interning for a marketing company. And I mean, people always say that comm and marketing kind of go hand in hand. But was there any other field in the media world that you were thinking of pursuing?
Yeah, actually, the communications degree that I got had a specialty part of it, which was journalism. I actually wanted to be a journalist and was able to practice some of that. I did write for the college newspaper, had a couple stories, had a part-time job actually with one of the local papers up here in Connecticut for probably about a year. But basically I was finding that these types of jobs in journalism were kind of drying up. So in 1999, I guess it was, entered a newspaper ad, remember newspapers? For Wallstrom Group. Back then they were called Wallstrom and Company. And they were looking for people to become basically, account executives at that point. And answered the call, worked there, and didn't leave there for 17 years until they sold their business to somebody else. I was one of the last people to put out their torch when they closed up shop a few years ago. So if I had my druthers, I would have been a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. But that didn't work out. So
That's interesting. You had a focus too. At Westchester, we don't have certain focuses.
We don't actually have journalism at Westchester. I actually minored in it the first couple years because I always wanted to be a journalist, and then I kind of just wanted to take a different direction, and I chose to major media and culture, which is kind of communications in a way. It's in the communications department. But it's kind of interesting. Journalism is, I agree with you. I think it's kind of dying, John. It's kind of like a dying industry. It's kind of a shame, newspapers, were such a big part of everybody's lives, and now everything's so digital.
Well, yeah, and you need journalists for the digital world, but it is a much different, scenario, especially from when I was studying, 30 years ago. If you take a look, local papers are what's dying the most. I mean, I know up in Connecticut we had a number of local papers that are no longer publishing. Newspapers are being bought out by venture capitalists, and their newsrooms are being sacked every day. So it's a different world for journalism for sure. But again, I maybe in a way, looking back, I was lucky I didn't try to push and go down that road because I'd have probably been out of a job by now. So.
So you mentioned Wallstrom Group. You worked there for 17 years. Now you've been at DSG for over five actually.
Yep.
But where exactly did you get your foot in the door? Were you an intern first, like us, or did you just get right into marketing after your experience at Wallstrom?
Well, my journey to Wallstrom actually had kind of an interim between graduation from college and actually hooking up with Wallstrom. So there was about a 5-year time frame from 94 to 99 where I actually, when I went to college at Virginia Wesleyan, I had met my wife, my future wife there, and we decided to actually stay there and try to raise a family. We had our daughter a couple of years later. I actually worked as a tour guide at the Norfolk Botanical Garden, and then tried selling insurance, which was where I put a lot of hair on my teeth. Let's say that was door-to-door accident insurance sales. I did that for 3 years. Finally, we decided to move back to where her family is in Connecticut, and actually they hired me right out of the gate. Did not have to intern, so they got me cracking right away, and it was all at that point. It was all print yellow pages. So that's where I kind of put my nose to the grindstone, and for years and years and years worked exclusively on print yellow pages campaigns for some national clients. Did that for probably my first 10 years, I'd say, out of the 17 I was there. And then came along the internet. So decided I wanted to start concentrating on that. That was the future, and was lucky enough to have the opportunity to work on some Google Ads campaigns for a number of clients, and pretty well, in some ways, did a little self-teaching at that point. It was just beginning at that point, and you rolled with it as it came. And so that's what the changes that were afoot. So it was basically, I learned digital on an as-needed basis, because that's what we needed at the time for Wallstrom to expand their business.
Would you say that was a hard transition from the yellow pages to going digital?
Hard? No, it wasn't hard. I would say it was refreshing more than anything else. When you're dealing with the print yellow pages stuff, it does get kind of boring after a while. I was happy to actually be able to expand my own knowledge base and be able to participate in kind of a growth industry at that point, which was digital. Of course, digital's still growing, but now it's kind of the standard. Whereas back when I was transitioning, it really wasn't. People were still investing heavily in more traditional media like radio, TV, print. So I wouldn't say it was hard. It was slightly challenging, put it that way. But like I said, very refreshing to be able to be working on something new and innovative.
And going back to journalism, how did you feel about your switch from journalism to just going into something completely different, like marketing? Like, was that a weird...
It really didn't bother me, because at that time, remember I said I had been selling insurance door to door. So I was willing to really, delve into anything that had anything to do with what I had studied in college, which was that kind of communications, marketing, journalism track. So, no, I was, at that point, I was like, I may have dreamed about being a journalist, but got to put that aside. I've got to put food on the table. That's what happened is that real life hit you in the face.
Yeah.
So was very happy to start working for them. Didn't like the commute, but that's neither here nor there.
So do you have any advice that you would give us as interns or in general to people trying to work their way up in a company?
Well, can I be specific to kind of marketing? That's
yes,
all right?
Absolutely.
That's where my expertise lies. I would say, from an intern standpoint, this is an ever-changing landscape, and it changes compared to when I was younger, when I was your age. It changes almost every day. Follow the news. Get yourself informed about trends going on in the digital world. Take a look, for example, I wouldn't have been talking to you, 3 years ago about TikTok at all, maybe 4. Now it's exploded. So that's where, as you mature within your own career path, that you've got to take a look, not just from what you're working on, but what you could be working on in the future.
Yeah.
And it's just so quick. It's so fast-paced that it will be very hard to keep up. But that's my big advice, is to stay informed.
It's funny because before I was interning at DSG, just being completely honest, I've never looked in my LinkedIn newsfeed at all.
Me neither.
And that was probably something I learned on my first day there, and something that my manager, Michael, told me is just to keep looking in the newsfeed, looking for new articles or anything that kind of relates to the marketing world that we could either talk about, or it's just very, very beneficial. So now I try to do that a lot more.
Yeah. And I will say this, you guys are of the age where you guys still, your brain is a sponge. When you get to my age, the sponge kind of dries up a little bit. So take in as much as you can now. I don't know, and this is one of those things that I've noticed is that whatever I ended up studying in college probably doesn't apply at all now for me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what you guys are studying hopefully is a little bit more modernized, of course, but you might find in 10 or 20 years what you learned in college, especially in terms of the communications and marketing, may not even apply. So that's where you've got to be nimble. That's the big thing.
Yeah, the real life experiences are very beneficial so far. I mean, it's only been a few weeks that we've been at DSG, but it's definitely helping to see it from a real world perspective.
Through an internship, you're going to get a pretty big breadth of knowledge. But once you're actually employed and you're sitting down and you're doing work, you're going to end up learning stuff in the weeds that you would only learn at that particular company for their particular needs. Mm-hmm. So, that's why it's important to kind of come out from the weeds, let's say, and take a look at things from a more broad standpoint so that you can, expand your own knowledge base beyond what you actually are working on at that particular time for whatever particular company you're working with.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, John, thanks for sharing all that. But the one thing that CareerTracks is also going to focus on is your interest outside of DSG. And you mentioned in a pre-interview that you're a passionate baseball fan, specifically the New York Mets, which, we work in Malvern, Pennsylvania, so a lot of us are Philadelphia Phillies fans, which makes sense. But you were born in Queens, so I have to ask, what's your thoughts on last season? They really fell apart at the end there. Didn't even get out of the NLDS, and they were favored most of the year. I mean, I feel like it's hard being a Mets fan, and I'm not just saying that as a Phillies fan. I'm saying that as a baseball fan. I just want to get your thoughts on the Mets season and just being a Mets fan in general.
Well, you can say it as a Phillies fan, too. You guys haven't exactly had it easy, okay? I think from a Mets-Phillies standpoint, we should all just agree that we, bond together and just hate on the Braves or something, at this point, because that's very well.
That's fair. Well, we are coming off a championship run. We fell short. You brought up the Braves. That's a good point. Would you say this year the biggest threat is the Phillies to you, or is it the Braves?
I think it's almost the entire division. Well, I think it's Braves, Phillies, Mets. I really do.
Oh wow. Okay. I mean, you did lose DeGrom, which does hurt, and you added the Cy Young and Justin Verlander, but he's not getting any younger. And then the whole Carlos Correa debacle. I mean, I'll be interested to see how the Mets bounce back after last year. Definitely went out and spent some money, but they did lose probably the best pitcher in baseball.
If he could stay healthy.
Well, that's true. That's true. He's only.
That was always the problem. Yes, I mean, and keep in mind, DeGrom is no spring chicken. I think he came up very late when he first started. So look, they backfilled with Verlander. He'll last another 2 years. Cross your fingers. Yeah, the biggest question mark for me is the starting rotation because they do have two, pretty, older guys, let's say. They've been great all their careers, but can they still do it at 38, 39, 40? I think other than that, they'll be okay. I really do. And I think your team's going to have a very good year too. It's going to be a fight. It's going to be a big fight to see who gets it. But I'm optimistic, but every year I'm optimistic, and every year I get disappointed. But that's just.
Hey, like you said, we're in the same boat. It's been a long 10 years until the Phillies got back to the playoffs this year. At least you've had some taste of getting into the playoffs the last few years. Obviously, you've been around for a while, so you've seen some championships as well.
Yeah.
So, well, obviously,
Jack, I still live in my 13-year-old body from 1986. Okay, so at least you're not having to live through that.
Well, that's true. Well, you know what, John? I wish I could talk baseball all day, and I'm definitely going to keep in mind outside the podcast room here to talk some Phillies and Mets as the season gets going. I'm excited for baseball season. It's
Yeah,
nice that
I'll be happy
football's
to join
done.
you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like I said,
so
I'm a big baseball aficionado too, not just Mets, kind of like you. So that'd be a refreshing topic to talk about. Sure.
so our last thing we'll have for you before your song is this segment we like to call Super Rapid Fire, and Gabby's going to introduce what that segment's going to look like.
Okay, so this is a segment where we ask our interviewees, so we're going to be asking John questions on the fly, and they don't know them beforehand. Most of them are this or that questions, just to get to know some fun facts about you, John. So, let me get my timer. You'll have 60 seconds to answer these questions.
So, John, whatever comes to mind first, that's the answer we're looking for. Are you ready to do this?
Yeah. Sure.
All right, Gabby,
Ready?
60 seconds on the clock.
Set, go.
Dogs or cats?
Both.
Okay. Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Okay. Would you rather have a fancy car or a fancy house?
House.
Okay. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Yes.
Only be able to watch movies for the rest of your life or only listen to music?
Music.
Big parties or small gatherings?
Small gathering.
Pancakes or waffles?
Waffle.
What's your favorite fast food chain?
Arby's.
Wow. Okay. Sweets or salty snacks?
Salty.
Dunkin' or Starbucks?
That's that even a question? Duncan.
Indoor person or outdoor person?
Indoor.
And how do you like your eggs?
Time.
What was the answer there?
Scrambled.
Scrambled. Okay. Arby's, John. Really? That's your favorite fast food chain? That caught me off guard.
Let me give you the background on this now. We do not have an Arby's that's local to us. So in order for us to get Arby's, we have to travel a good maybe 20 miles or so, maybe more, to get Arby's. So it is a special treat when we do get it.
What do you get? I've never been to an Arby's.
It's roast beef. You go
Roast
there
beef.
for the roast.
Okay.
Yep. Oh,
Interesting. That's interesting. Like you said, it's a treat to drive out there, but I have an Arby's near me. I've had it once or twice, and I've said multiple times I'm not going back there. I was waiting for the basic answers in Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, even Wendy's. Wow, Arby's. Wow, it's got to be the most surprising thing from this interview, I think.
Because it is, like I said, now if we had one locally, which we were supposed to have one and caused a big controversy when they didn't come here, it's kind of a running joke throughout the town. I would probably be tired of it. So, I agree. Look, it's not the best roast beef in the world. If I want roast beef, I better go up to Rhode Island. There's plenty of places up there that have much better roast beef. But yeah, Arby's is a nice little treat.
They have one going up Glen Mills up to Delaware. Maybe I'll drive
might have
up
to take
and
the
give it a
trip,
try.
All right, well, John, we learned a lot about you today. Definitely an Arby's fan. As a Mets fan, some interesting things throughout. Gave us some perspective of what it was, what you wanted to do, journalism, and then you worked your way into the marketing world. A lot of interesting stuff. We want to thank you for being our first guest on CareerTracks.
Thanks for choosing me as the first guest. I hope I didn't disappoint.
No, it was an awesome interview. It was really just like I said, it was really interesting to hear your perspective on a lot of different things. And one way we end our interviews here on CareerTracks, we mentioned in the introduction, is that we'll be playing your favorite song or the song of your choice, and you chose an interesting song. It's "Uprising" by Muse. Is there a specific reason you chose that song? Is it actually your favorite song?
It is one of my favorite songs. It is. We kind of halfway chose that as our theme in the Democratic Town Committee here in Ansonia. If you listen to the words, you'll see why. And it's one that I actually perform at karaoke sometimes, and I've been told I do it pretty well. So.
Wow, karaoke.
Yeah.
That's another interesting fact.
That's a hard song to sing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's what I've been told. So.
Can you sing, John?
I've been told I can. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Oh, we'll have to hit karaoke as a DSG A little outing there.
We may have to do a karaoke. Hopefully I knock your socks off if we do that. So.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining us, John. It really was an interesting interview, and looking forward to posting this first episode and being our first guest. Maybe we'll have you on another time down the road.
I would thoroughly enjoy that.
All right, John. This is your song of choice. This is "Uprising" by Muse. Take it easy, John.
You too. Thank you both.
All right, that was Uprising by Muse. An interesting choice by John, to say the least. I like that song. It's an I haven't really heard it that often, but I was kind of shocked when he put that as his song choice.
Now thinking of it after listening to it, it reminds me of a song that would be played like over the summer by the pool in like 2012 or something.
That's yeah.
Like
it's
old
definitely not
memory in
a
my head.
song that I would say is a karaoke song.
Yeah.
Like I go to karaoke night at Westchester quite often. I don't think that would even be an option. I mean that's. John
I
says he
can't
could
imagine
sing. I
singing
mean,
it.
that's just like that's a very hard song to sing. So that's interesting. John's interview was really interesting. I have to say, Gabby, it's something that, like I said, I was blown away by the Arby's thing.
Yeah.
But he was also adamant about Dunkin'. And I typically have kind of been going more towards Starbucks with that answer.
You're bringing Starbucks to the office. I make my coffee at home, but whenever I go to get coffee, it's always Dunkin'.
It's a little cheaper.
Yeah.
I get that.
As a college student.
Yeah, that's true.
Closer to Westchester.
Yeah, that's
There's a
also
lot.
true. I thought it was an interesting interview. He obviously talked about his time in in college and focusing on journalism through communications, which I thought was interesting because that's something I always looked into. And I always thought journalism was dying. It's kind of interesting that he thought journalism was dying all those years ago. And, I'm thinking that now. If he thought that back then, it must truly be a dying industry. I mean,
I also thought it was interesting that he was talking about the kind of advertising that he did before. Like, I was assuming he went to college for journalism and then totally switched to marketing kind of right away.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know there was an in-between. So I guess that made his transition easier, he said.
Yeah. I mean, you did say communications and marketing do go hand in hand, so you could go that way. But so yeah, I mean, we want to thank John. It was really a good interview. Definitely a good first guest of a choice. He's definitely Gabby, I don't know your extent on baseball, but he's
no extent
at all. But he took a shot there at the Phillies, and it's fair. We took a shot at the Mets, but it's a fun rival to have. I'm interested to see how his Mets do this season, how the Phillies do. It was definitely a fun conversation to have, and looking forward to the many conversations that CareerTracks will have down the road. So this has been the first episode of CareerTracks. Like I said, we want to thank John one last time. Thank you to anybody that listened. And this is CareerTracks with Jack Marinello.
And Gabby Milacki.
And we'll see you next time.